askreddit. Serious, people of Reddit who have experienced clinical death, and then been resuscitated. Obviously, what if anything did you experience on the other side? I am so torn on what happens after death. I had died once for a couple minutes, and it was nothing at all. Exactly like when you pass out. Literally 1 second you are there, the next second, nothing. When I was revived, it was as if it was just an instantaneous jump in time, location, and I was very confused for a bit. But with loved ones who have died, there have been strange occurrences after that leave me wondering about what happens after death and if there is something going on that we cannot explain yet. The day my grandfather died of liver cancer, there were 3 loud knocks in my bedroom on the wall, literally sounded like someone knocking on a door inside the room, just a few minutes before I received the call. Turns out he died within a minute of those knocks. My brother now lives in my grandparents' old farmhouse with his young daughter, now 3.5. She was born after my grandfather's passing and as such had never met him or saw any old photos of him. She is always talking and playing around with the nice old man and always sees him. There is nobody there. But she saw a photo of him a few months back of when he was in the Navy, in his much younger years, and immediately said that was the man she always talks to. Other youngsters in the family have also seen him in the house. My grandfather would always help out families, and help kids. In his later years, he worked at the local middle school helping underprivileged and troubled kids and was by far the most generous, caring person I had ever met. Him and my grandmother raised me and shaped who I am today. Before my brother moved in when my grandmother was moved to a senior apartment, to give her social opportunities since she was becoming depressed and lonely at home after my grandfather passed, and eventually hospice, I lived at her house with her for a few months when I was between jobs to help keep her company and help maintain the house. I slept upstairs in their old master bedroom since she didn't like stairs and she stayed in the main floor bedroom. One night I was awakened by my grandfather's voice around 2 a.m., clear as day, in the room talking to me. Then when he stopped talking, the door to the room slowly opened, unlatched itself, fully and then shut fully. Confused, and not really a believer of ghosts, I thought maybe it was my grandmother or an intruder, so I went downstairs to check on her and she was sound asleep. Literally yesterday afternoon, my grandmother passed away, after battling terminal cancer that finally moved to her brain. 13 years ago they gave her 1 year to live, so she is definitely a fighter despite doctors refusing any further treatments years ago. I was at work, signals and communications maintainer on the railroad, and I got a sudden gut feeling that something horrible had happened. Just this utter sense of complete dread washed over me. I never cry, but I just could not keep from breaking down and weeping from this inexplicable dread. Then few seconds later, a pair of the most beautiful birds, a male and a female, I have ever seen with my own eyes landed right next to me, less than 2 feet away, and were singing a beautiful song before flying away about 2 minutes later. They were not scared of me, and I just sat there, watching and listening to them cheerfully sing their songs, putting a smile on my face after feeling such dread just seconds before. After some research, I found that those birds are not found in this region at all, explaining why I, an avid hobbyist birdwatcher, have never seen that species before. Also, my grandmother was pronounced dead literally a minute or so before those birds landed next to me, and about 5 minutes before I received the call. It could have totally been a total coincidence, but I like to think it was my grandparents, who I was extremely close to, letting me know they were okay. I have had other experiences like these with close loved ones, and I know others who have had interesting experiences after a loved one's death as well. So I am completely torn. I know in my personal experience, there was nothing. But others in similar situations had said they had this instinctual choice to stay or go, or more commonly, have a third-person view of what's going on from the corner of the room. So I just don't know. The best I can come up with is that there is a lot about this world we do not yet understand. My sister, A friend of ours and I got caught in a riptide and everyone on shore thought we were playing, so nobody responded. I swam as hard as I could and fought until I started swallowing water and actually breathing it in. At first, it stung, but then, a peaceful feeling came over me and I remember thinking, well, that wasn't too bad. I guess dying doesn't hurt as bad as I always thought. I felt a profound peacefulness. It was at that moment that my rescuer pulled me out of the water and shocked me back to life. That's so weird because I came here to write my experience, but it is identical to yours down to every detail. I even remember peacefully floating down to the bottom of the ocean and having pleasant memories flash through my mind and thinking this isn't so bad. Then a dude on a surfboard grabbed my arm and pulled me up. It's like sleeping without dreaming. Or being put under for surgery where the last thing you remember is the anesthesiologist counting backwards and the next thing you remember is waking up in the recovery ward. Nothingness. Which is not the same thing as blackness or emptiness. When I came back I felt very disoriented while also feeling very sure that I was thinking clearly. I kept trying to sit up and get out of bed. Felt like I had a million urgent things to do right at that moment and I kept trying to get up so I could run some errands and brush my teeth. The doctors and nurses had to push me back into bed while saying, "You don't have to do anything, you just died." "I have to run some errands and brush my teeth. You don't have to do anything, you just died." I laughed way too hard reading that. I am interested though. How does it compare to anesthesia? Is it basically the same type of nothingness or is there a different vibe to dead nothingness? My dad was clinically dead for 4 minutes last autumn, after a routine biopsy went septic. He's a devout Christian and saw nothing. He desperately wanted to see something. Like his mother who died a month-ish prior, or his dad who died 15 years ago. Or Jesus. But only blackness. He said it was like passing out, and he awoke to my mom's tears splashing on his face. He asked what happened? "You were gone." "Gone where?" He thought he'd just passed out. He visited a therapist afterwards, in part, to deal with the depression that came with having no glimpse of heaven. He's still a devout Christian, but it really bummed him out. Like a previous post, your consciousness is still active for about 1 to 20 minutes after you are clinically dead. He most likely still had brain activity going on before he woke back up, which is why he didn't truly die. Most likely, the nothingness is just pure consciousness with no bodily senses. Everyone who dies and then is brought back has some brain activity. When the brain activity stops it's called brain death, and there's no coming back from that. For years I had many theories about the other side, what it looked like and how it felt. When it happened to me it was just darkness, but I did feel really warm, not a hell joke lol. I felt like I was wrapped in a soft blanket in total darkness. I was pretty depressed when they brought me back. Dude, same here. I was warm, in total darkness, and everything felt okay. I haven't been able to feel normal since. There should be support groups for this. Absolutely nothing. I was just gone. I was really disoriented when I came to, but over time it actually dissuaded my fear of death. Knowing that I'd already died once and it wasn't terrible at all. No darkness, no suffering, just in existence. It's a comforting thought that there is finality, in the end. Honestly thought the replies would help my fear of death, but now I am currently having a panic attack over the idea of nothingness. No tunnel, no light, just nothingness. You cannot feel it in any manner. Switch off in the ambulance, switch on in the hospital. Less than 1 minute of clinical death, according to the doctors who saved me. Crazy. That's how I expect it to be too, but I just can't wrap my head around that switch turning off. Glad you came back. I mean, it's the same as when you sleep but don't dream. As a narcoleptic I feel like I experience this often. 1 minute I'm eating spaghetti on a date, next thing you know everything is black and really saucy because my face is in said spaghetti and my date's gone and there is an old woman panicking asking if I'm okay. I mean it's also the same as before you were born. For those thousands of years, did you care? No. You weren't sad or upset, you were nothing. That's actually not true though either, you weren't nothing, you were particles. I mean when you die you are still particles. You will go back to being one with the universe. You will become a part of another living thing eventually. That living thing may ponder life and death again. You will live again, but the you now won't know it and the future you won't know you lived before. You will always exist, just in many different ways. It absolute and utter bliss. I can't even explain how much bliss, but bliss. Happiness, relief, utter joy, just everything good, so good that I did not want to come back and was even pissed I got brought back. I have so much to live for, a husband and 2 sons, and 2 dogs, but I still didn't want to come back because it was so great. Are you religious? Did you see anything or was it just a feeling? No, not religious. I had a feeling, almost a need, when I came back that I needed to help people. When I got better I did just that. I don't know what that relates to. Same. That feeling of unconditional love that just overwhelms you. You feel safe, you feel happy. I felt forgiven for my shitty life and everyone else's shitty life. You understand that nothing else really matters and that's just life. Or death I guess. The universe just imploding into your brain in different shades of beautiful. It's an expression of ultimate infinite love that surpasses anything you could ever achieve in life. The understanding that hate is a human construct meant for survival, but love just is. I tried my best to remember it but it fades with time. I used to be depressed and I didn't believe in anything really higher up but I also understood that this is what people have been trying to explain with more or less success through religion. I can totally see it trying to be explained through terms like God and Nirvana or whatever. I just feel like I get it now and nothing will ever take that away. My panic attacks have almost completely stopped and my depression is gone. I'm slowly getting my stuff together now. I was pronounced clinically dead for just over a minute after a terrible bike accident that shattered and tore away a good chunk of the left side of my face. I remember so much noise and commotion in a back of an ambulance, then silence and darkness, utter endless peaceful silence, darkness and nothingness. Not a malicious darkness or uneasy silence though. It's really hard to put into words. The only way I can describe it is you don't realize just how much noise life holds. It's like since that day I notice a constant static background fuzz at all times, even in the quietest of quiet scenarios, and this is what I have come to call life's background noise. This sticks with me, I hear it always. I hope that when my time is done and my innings are all over I will be returned to that oasis of silence and serenity. My grandfather had heart problem and was resuscitated so many times in his life that he had clocked up over 20 minutes of clinical death by the time lung cancer took him. He said in all that time he didn't see, feel or experience anything otherworldly as he called. No white light, no tunnel, no outer body. I had a dream, I guess. They told me I was gone for about 30 seconds. I was standing in the middle of a 4-way crossroad and a disembodied voice asked me which way I wanted to go. I panicked because I didn't have an answer. The voice began laughing and when I asked what was so funny they hit me with the defib and I was back. Hurt like a bitch. I still have nightmares about it sometimes. I had an out-of-body experience, but the only way I knew it was out of body was because my vantage point changed. It didn't feel like anything but I was watching what was happening in the hospital room from up by the ceiling looking down. I have no recollection of anything except that I got to watch my resuscitation. I watched people coming in and out of the room. I watched my family. I have a clear view of the room. I was looking towards the foot of the bed. The last memory I had before the out-of-body experience was that I was feeling very euphoric from lack of oxygen, and I could hear them asking if anyone had a pulse, and I thought that was really funny because of course I had a pulse. I could hear them. I was unconscious so I couldn't respond, but I was thinking they weren't great doctors. Then next thing I know, I'm watching them from the ceiling. I have no recollection of returning to my body at all. I also had no lights or deep thoughts or tunnels or aha moments. The whole out-of-body experience thing, I can see it happening as a natural function of the brain. I used to always get them when I fell off my bed as a kid. I would watch myself from across my bedroom get up all groggy and sleepy, and get back into bed. Then after a while I would actually wake up and be pissed that I wasn't yet back into bed and I had to get up again. I have a type of epilepsy that can cause seizures that manifest as out-of-body experiences. An intense déjà vu, temporal lobe epilepsy. I've had lots, especially in my puberty years, and it's nothing more than the brain malfunctioning and trying to cope and display an image of the world. It's my brain's idea of the room. Seizures explain a lot of weird things people have seen in history. The divine fits. I don't know if I was clinically dead, but I assume that's what it was. I had a cardiac issue, and arrested at home and in the ER while in the waiting room. I kept losing consciousness and they weren't even looking at my heart. They were about to CT scan my brain when someone hooked me up to a portable monitor and saw I had a heart rate of about 20. Which is basically none. During one of those times, I was suddenly in a place where I was completely aware of myself, but had no thoughts of what was going on with me. I felt no pain, could see nothing but white. It felt like I was in a warm dry cloud, really hard to describe, but all the chaos of them coding me vanished. I didn't think about my husband, children, or parents. Just, hey, this is weird, where am I? I remember it now extremely clear like it was yesterday, though this happened in 1996. I've passed out before, and this wasn't that. I've been under general anesthesia and it was nothing like that either. I was resuscitated, and now live with a pacemaker as a result of that day. I was 30 when it happened. Whatever caused my cardiac issues that day never happened again. The pacemaker never fired, and the battery has long since died. Cardiologists say I can have it removed if I want, but why bother? It'll be there if I need one again someday. Nothing. It was as if I disappeared. Not even as if I fell asleep. When I woke up, 3 days had passed and I had a tube down my throat with all but a few memories intact. Then again, I did only add on a cocktail of medications, so maybe it's different for other people. I don't remember what I saw, but I remember asking if I could stay and I didn't want to go back. I didn't hear a response or anything. Like I said, I just remember asking if I could stay wherever I was and then coming to on the life flight helicopter. I do remember feeling amazing wherever I was, like nothing could compare to the joy I was feeling there and the security I felt. Sorry if this doesn't make sense. It's really hard for me to put into words. My grandfather had this happen twice and said the same thing. It was weird to hear when I was a young kid. He said every minute of your day you have aches and pains, worries, etc. in your body and mind. He said as you're dying that all disappears. It was the most peaceful feeling he had ever experienced. When I was 5 years old I was in a house fire. I was clinically dead and I have memories that I had a strange vision when everything happened. The best way I can explain it was that I had an out-of-body experience. I switched from a first-person view to a third-person view. Then I can describe my vantage point as a camera on a constant zoom out up into the sky and then into space, and basically the speed of the zoom out increased exponentially until I was so far zoomed out that I passed through strange and beautiful colors I could hardly describe at the time. I thought it was heaven at that age. Now when I try and remember it I can describe it as passing through galaxies and nebulas. I believe that my conscience bonded with my energy and it was released from my body to all the energy which is still accelerating outwards away from the Big Bang. I believe that all energy is somehow connected and there are many types and forms of it we don't understand yet.